Enjoy this fun photo collage of some of your favorite stars and politicians who speak about the need to reduce our carbon footprint, but who are always on private planes. That's right, all of them. If you don't see a celebrity's picture here, it's because we weren't allowed to use it. Or their series got canceled.
It was downright amusing when Ma pulled back the curtain on Hollywood's favorite moral heroes. I've said it countless times, trusting these so-called enlightened stars is a fast track to disappointment. Their hypocrisy runs so deep, even the devil himself might turn red from embarrassment. Ma tore through it all, from Bernie Sanders' self-proclaimed virtue to George Clooney's flashy political posturing, and he didn't hold back for a second. Frankly, the reckoning was long overdue. So let's begin the takedown.
These are not good people. It's just not in us, including me. And I'm tired of living well, not a lie, but it's also something I never mention, but it's a new year, and I'd like to come clean. My name is Bill. And I fly private. And so does every other person who calls themselves an environmentalist who can.
Ma kicked things off by admitting that he's a passionate advocate for protecting the planet. But here's the twist. He flies solo, literally. That's the kind of eco-consciousness we're talking about. The perfect snapshot of celebrity hypocrisy. These self-righteous stars log more flight hours than a presidential campaign, yet never miss a chance to lecture everyone about carbon footprints. They've memorized every new climate study like a script, sprinkling their speeches with the latest buzzwords and eco-friendly slogans. But when it comes to actually living by those values, silence. It's activism at its most hollow, where the goal isn't change, but applause. And for once, Ma called them out exactly as they deserved.
Enjoy this fun photo collage of some of your favorite stars and politicians who speak about the need to reduce our carbon footprint, but who are always on private planes. That's right, all of them. If you don't see a celebrity's picture here, it's because we weren't allowed to use it. Or their series got canceled.
That's exactly why, beyond their on-screen roles, I can't see these people as genuine. Most of them rake in massive paychecks to promote their so-called Save the Planet campaigns. It's not conviction, it's marketing. And don't be fooled by the ones who claim they're doing it out of love for the cause. They're simply polishing their public image, enjoying lavish lifestyles while pretending to be symbols of humility and virtue. This has nothing to do with saving the earth, it's about saving face. Their mansions, luxury cars, and private jets all get neatly excused under the banner of mindful living. And when Bernie Sanders shows up, suddenly even the most ordinary people seem perfectly comfortable mingling with Hollywood's finest.
Environmentalists of Hollywood and Washington do it. Their position on climate change is, we must do more to stop pouring carbon into the air, except for me when I want to go somewhere and then I take a...
Interestingly, most of the celebrities Ma mocked were the same ones who eagerly rallied behind Kamala Harris's campaign or proudly declared their unwavering support for her. They're loyal Democrats, and environmentalism has long been a centerpiece of the party's agenda. For the past 20 years, these stars have used award shows, red carpets, and social media to preach about sustainable living and eco-conscious habits. Yet after all the speeches, slogans, and viral posts, what's actually changed? Almost nothing. The climate hasn't improved, emissions remain high, and their personal carbon footprints are bigger than ever. The truth is, their activism is more about performance than principle, an exercise in public image rather than accountability. They promote causes they barely understand, only to return to their extravagant, fuel-hungry lifestyles the moment the spotlight fades.
Turns out there is one thing in this world that is completely impossible to resist, and this is it. It's like heroin. If you do it once, you'll never stop. There are two kinds of people in the world, those who fly private and those who would if they could.
Here, Bill Maher is simply being honest. And I completely agree with him. Honestly, if I ever got the chance to fly private, I'd take it without hesitation. Who wouldn't? It's faster, more comfortable, and spares you from the endless frustrations of commercial travel. No long security lines, no cramped seats with zero leg room, no tedious boarding process, and definitely no flavorless food served in plastic trays. Flying commercial has gone from being an exciting experience to a test of patience. In contrast, private flying offers luxury, peace, and the freedom to actually enjoy the journey instead of just enduring it. You set your own schedule, stop when you please, and travel on your own terms. And that's the point. Maher isn't condemning private jets themselves. He's calling out the hypocrisy of pretending to be morally superior while indulging in the very luxuries you criticize.
Third category, those who could but do not, does not exist. Except for Ed Begley and Greta Thunberg. And that's why you never see a picture of her smiling. Ed and Greta, that's who walks the walk. Everyone else is full of and I'm done being full of
Now, I have to admit, I'm starting to question Greta Thunberg a bit. At times, she comes across as more performative than passionate, almost as if her activism has become an act in itself. Still, I have to give credit where it's due. On this point, I agree with Maher. Unlike the Hollywood elites who lecture about saving the planet while flying first class or hopping on private jets, Greta actually practices what she preaches. She lives by the principles she advocates, whether that means sailing across the Atlantic instead of flying or choosing trains over planes. While many self-proclaimed eco-warriors can't give up their luxuries, Greta willingly takes the tougher, less convenient route. So, whatever one may think of her personally, there's no denying that she has the courage to live by the same environmental standards she expects from everyone else.
Take being a bad environmentalist, because almost all of us are, but I can't take being a hypocrite. Now, I always justified renting a plane because I only used it for work and literally could not get to most of my stand-up gigs on time any other way. How do you think I did it all those years? I said goodnight here at 8 p.m. and was on stage in Vegas at 10. But I don't need to do stand-up, like tomorrow night in Albuquerque.
Sadly, that's exactly what the Democratic Party has become, a showcase of hypocrisy wrapped in wokeness. They love to parade their lofty ideals and pose as the nation's moral guide, but once you look beyond the surface, it's all illusion. They fight tooth and nail for causes they don't genuinely believe in, chasing media approval and Hollywood applause rather than real progress. Conviction has taken a backseat to appearance. Every statement must be polished, every word carefully chosen to avoid even the slightest offense. They tiptoe around truth, terrified of being labeled insensitive or controversial. In their obsession with perfection and political correctness, they've lost any sense of authenticity. Instead of standing for principles, they stand for trends, a party of rhetoric over reality, more concerned with looking right than being right.
Outside of heads of state, almost everyone else could fly commercial. Why don't they? Ask anyone who tried to get home for Christmas last year. And don't tell me the younger generation is better. They're not. They're just poorer. They're actually worse. This is who they look up to. The family where everyone has their own private jet. And kids love Bitcoin, which, to determine the value of, takes an amount of computer processing that uses more electricity than some whole countries. Kids could have rejected that, but they didn't. They love it. Why? Because they want to be rich. Why? So they can fly private.
Ma didn't mince words when calling out the younger wing of the Democratic Party. He observed that these young activists who've marched in every protest, signed endless petitions, and attended countless climate conferences are supposedly the most environmentally aware generation in history, yet they're making the same mistakes as those before them. As Ma Riley pointed out, their passion for saving the planet doesn't always stem from moral conviction, but rather from circumstance. It's easy to be eco-conscious when you can't afford a private jet or a mansion loaded with air conditioners. Their so-called integrity, he implied, might not be as pure as it seems. If this generation were handed the same wealth and comfort as the elites they criticize, they'd likely fall into the same patterns, if not worse. In Ma's view, much of their activism may just be poverty disguised as principle.
Resist it. John Kerry is our climate czar, and he uses a private jet. People take jets to environmental conferences. If you could run TED Talks on hypocrisy, you wouldn't need coal.
Exactly. Ma kept hitting the DNC with one truth bomb after another, and this one landed hard. U.S. presidential envoy for climate change. John Kerry was caught flying on a private jet. And no, this didn't happen before his appointment. It happened afterward, which makes it even worse. You simply can't lead the global fight against climate change while piloting a fuel-guzzling jet. It shatters every ounce of credibility. Ma made the point crystal clear. You can't preach virtue while practicing excess. The hypocrisy is staggering. These are the same people lecturing the public on cutting emissions and conserving energy, yet they burn through more fuel in a single week than most families do in an entire year. That's not leadership. It's political posturing dressed up as moral authority.
Sorry, not sorry. I tried to do my part for the environment. I never had kids. The one thing worse for the planet than private jets. It's true, because then they have kids. I had the first generation Prius in 2001. It looked like a Tylenol gel cap. I was always handing my keys to valets who were driving a better car than me. I had the first Tesla in 2010, and honestly, both these cars sucked. The Tesla came up to about here on me. If I had a hard-on, I couldn't fit in this thing.
As Ma's rant went on, it became a mix of self-praise and self-awareness. Classic Ma. He took a moment to pat himself on the back for his environmental efforts, proudly noting that he drives a Tesla and genuinely wishes more people would do the same. But, as he admitted, that hasn't quite happened. In fact, the opposite seems true. As people learn more about electric cars, many chose to stick with their gas-powered ones instead. And the irony is hard to miss between sky-high prices, unreliable charging stations, tricky battery disposal, and the fact that most electricity still comes from fossil fuels. The green revolution doesn't look so green after all. In his trademark cynical tone, Ma conceded that the eco-movement hasn't flourished the way idealists hoped. Instead, it's become yet another example of how good intentions crumble when virtue signaling replaces genuine progress.
I said to myself, okay, I'll take one for the team because I have a platform, so I'll do the right thing, and then everybody will follow. People will. Nobody followed. In 2021, 80% of new vehicles weren't electric, weren't even hybrid. They weren't even cars. They were SUVs and trucks. That's what people want. In 1973, the share of global electricity generated by coal was 38%. You know what it was 46 years later in 2019 after all the talk and all the trying? 37%. You know what percentage of plastic gets recycled? 5%. Those blue bins that are everywhere, they're not full of bottles, they're full of shit.
It's true. Humans are a paradoxical species. We love to talk about doing good, about being compassionate, conscious, and morally upright, yet when it's time to live by those same principles, most of us quietly choose convenience over conviction. We post hashtags about saving the planet, but then hop on the next flight for a weekend getaway. We denounce pollution online, only to drive off in our fuel-hungry SUVs the same evening. And that's exactly what Ma was getting at throughout his entire monologue, whether it's Hollywood elites preaching sustainability from their private jets, or politicians posing as moral leaders while guzzling more fuel than an entire neighborhood. The hypocrisy is staggering. The problem isn't a lack of knowledge. People know what needs to be done. It's a lack of genuine will. Everyone wants change, but few are willing to change themselves. We've built a culture obsessed with appearances, where caring about the environment is more about public image than personal sacrifice. Ma pointed out that the same people demanding climate justice are often the ones living the most unsustainable lives. Even the younger generation, supposedly the most climate aware in history, risks repeating those same mistakes, fueled less by conviction and more by circumstance. So, what happens when our activism becomes performance? Nothing meaningful. The world keeps warming while our speeches, conferences, and hashtags echo into the void. Ma's point was brutally simple. You can't preach virtue and live in contradiction. Until people, politicians, celebrities, and ordinary citizens alike start aligning their actions with their ideals, the fight against climate change will remain just talk. In the end, Ma held up a mirror, forcing us all to confront an uncomfortable truth. The greatest barrier to saving the planet isn't ignorance, it's hypocrisy. For more thought-provoking discussions like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.